Welcome to another episode of Fresh Corduroy. I'm your host, Craig Zolan. Today's guest is Joe Dunn, known to many of you as Ski Dad, a longtime ski racer, NCAA competitor, former race coach, and now full-time instructor at Deer Valley. In this conversation, we dig into Joe's path through ski racing, coaching, and teaching, and how those worlds overlap more than people think. We talk about his philosophy around clean completions, why the bottom of the turn matters so much, and how confidence and enjoyment are often missing ingredients for recreational skiers trying to improve. We also get into coaching kids, developing young skiers without burning them out, and how tools like CARV can support learning when used the right way. Whether you're a former racer, a weekend skier chasing better turns, or a parent thinking about youth programs, there's a lot here for you. If you're enjoying Fresh Corduroy, make sure to follow the show on your podcast platform of choice and share it with a ski buddy. Now, let's get some Fresh Corduroy with Joe Dunn. Joe Dunn, welcome to Fresh Corduroy.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. It's not every day you get to see your YouTube idol on the screen in front of you and get to talk with him or her, but I'm looking forward to the conversation. Before we dig into all things Ski Dad TV and instructing and teaching, I want to get your skiing origin story. Where and when did you start skiing?
So I'm not sure the first resort, but the story goes that my dad took my brother and I skiing, or really took my brother skiing, and I was a year old, and the plan was just to get my brother on the hill and going, but I was just a little kid, and I started going, undo, I want to do it too. And so they got me out on the first day as well when I was just a year old. And then from there, it was just a passion of my dad's. And my brother and I were into it, and I think when I was 8 years old, we started the local race program at Middlebury Snowball. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the middle of Vermont, had skied Pico. I guess Pico offered free skiing for kids under 3 or something. Or maybe it was like the first hour of the day you could ski for free, so my dad was taking advantage of that for a long time. But when we got serious about it, we were at Middlebury Snowball. I raced there till middle school, and then in middle school we switched over to Suicide 6, and I raced at Suicide 6 for a while. And then as a senior in high school, I switched to Stratton Mountain School, raced there my senior year and a PG year. And then after that, went to UNH, raced there, raced NCAAs, and then moved into the ski industry, where I was a ski rep for Technica and Blizzard. I was the national race coordinator there.
And were you based in the East or in the West when you were doing that?
That was West Lebanon, New Hampshire.
Yeah, I remember that place.
Yep.
Remember going to the facility, the office there, to pick up a pair of boots during my college days. So traveling through New Hampshire and picking up boots was always fun. So, but today you're teaching. You're an instructor at Deer Valley, among other things. How did you evolve from a industry rep to an instructor?
So my wife and I decided to move to Park City, Utah, and I stayed on with Blizzard for 2 years after doing that, working remote. But then my passion was always ski racing, and my passion was always coaching. And so then I became a U16 coach at the Park City ski team. And I did that for 4 years, and for the last 2 years, I was the head coach of the Park City ski team, U16s. And we had a lot of success. We did really, really well. Took a lot of kids to U16 nationals. We had Justin Bigelow was a U16 national champion. I coached Lauren Masuga there, who's having great success in the World Cup. Unfortunately, she's injured now.
Yeah. I just had her parents on an episode, Amy
outstanding.
and Dan.
They're wonderful.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I mean, she's just basically has the greatest attitude of any athlete I've ever coached. So it was really no surprise that if anyone was going to break through, it was going to be her.
Yeah, she's terrific.
And then after I had kids, I wanted to get off the road, a lot less traveling, and so I became a Deer Valley ski instructor. Deer Valley is my absolute favorite place to ski, and I grew up kind of making fun of ski instructors, and so it was kind of I had to swallow some pride. But if you're going to be a ski instructor, to do it at Deer Valley, such a great place is the place to be. And I really found that I like it. I really enjoy. I like skiing bell to bell. I'm totally happy being on the hill all day long, and I like to chit chat. So ski instructing actually turns out to be a really great thing for me.
Right. I think that comes through in your videos, and obviously that's how I came to know you, virtually, if you will. And your racing background and race coaching background comes through a lot in the material that you produce. How does that work with respect to teaching? So you have, middle-aged folks like me, perhaps, and others who don't, haven't been racing, haven't been, grown up skiing every day of their winter lives. So how do you translate what we think of as race coaching into instructing and helping those individuals improve their skiing technique?
I think a lot of the tools you have as a race coach are easily applicable to ski teaching. I mean, you're just talking about skiing, and you're really trying to just simplify skiing or come up with a new analogy or a way to connect with the person to help them see where they can go in their skiing and then get the feeling and then move into it. So really, I'd been just talking about skiing my whole life. The biggest change in ski teaching was now teaching people who couldn't already carve. In ski racing, you get as a U16 coach, you get handed kids that can already carve, and then you're just trying to build them up and improve their times in the course.
Right.
So the biggest thing that I learned becoming a ski instructor was how to teach somebody who'd never ever skied. That was brand new for me. And then how to move somebody from a wedge into parallel. And that was a big epiphany for me. I remember I was going through the ski instructor training at Deer Valley, and they do a really good job at Deer Valley of teaching you how to be a ski instructor. There's a whole week of paid training. And I'm just cruising through that week thinking like, okay, I'll learn the ropes, get told where to be, when to be there, that kind of thing. But as we're going through, the instructor was like, okay, who knows what the wedge Christie is? And I've done every drill imaginable, gone through it, knew them all, and I had no idea what he was talking about. And then this one random kid in my group raises his hand. He knows exactly what a wedge Christie is. I'm like, what is this? How does this kid know what a wedge Christie is? I don't know what a wedge Christie is. And so, what a wedge Christie is you snowplow into the top of the turn and then get your skis parallel through completion. And then you snowplow into the next turn, parallel into completion, and then slowly you move that parallel up higher into the turn until you enter the turn fully parallel for the first time. And I was blown away by that concept. I didn't realize that there was a simple approach to doing that while it's more of the idea of the wedge Christie, of this move in with the old skill and then learn the new skill at the bottom of the turn. I was like, oh my God, this is how you do it. This is how it's done. And realize that there's a wholesome way to get people through to basically the intermediate zone, which is parallel skiing.
Yeah. And in your videos, and you have a teaching or coaching philosophy. You call it base skiing, or right?
Yep.
And it's interesting that you mentioned the term completion in that description of the wedge Christie, because you definitely talk about clean completions and the like. But why don't you describe your teaching philosophy around base skiing, and how does that relate to both the everyday skier as well as the racer?
Yeah, so base skiing was basically my adaptation of what I'd learned from being a ski instructor and putting it in with my passion of being a race coach. Because I'm still totally into ski racing. I watch all the World Cups. I love it. I've got my kids in the local Grom program here at Park City, and we can get into that in a little bit. It's not a traditional approach to ski racing, but like I'm in it. I'm totally in it. I love it. And so even after moving over to Deer Valley, I was still very interested in always thinking about ski racing and really how I could have done it better, how I could have gotten more kids to a higher level. And with the Wedge Christie, now being aware of the Wedge Christie and having gone out and utilized it too. I mean, for my first year at Deer Valley, I was in the kids program and I was teaching never ever kids, intermediate kids from 3 years old all the way up to 13 years old, and really got a crash course in teaching kids. And so it was with that new knowledge and that new ability of coaching people from nothing all the way to parallel, that I started looking at racing a little bit differently. And in ski racing, it had always been move forward into the top of the turn. Get forward, move forward, make a forward move. Like that was 90% of the coaching that was out there. And as a race coach, I had actually come to the conclusion that there's no forward move. I don't know, probably in my first year as the U16 head coach, because I was watching it not work. And in race coaching, there's almost a acceptance of slow progress from the kids, that you're going to only that by grinding it out, by showing up every single day and running gates, you can get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And I remember always looking at my crew and knowing that if I could get their best run out of them, that we could go from having 2 kids in the top 5, 3 kids in the top 10, 4 kids, that kind of staggered kids. I knew that if I could get my best run or the best run out of each kid, we could have 8 kids in the top 10. I could just see the potential from the kids that I knew in the skiing and the kids that we were competing against, and knew that we could do so much better. So I was never satisfied with what we were doing. And then, so I stopped saying move forward into the turn. And I started telling kids there is no forward movement at the top of the turn, because I was watching kids move out of balance as they were trying to do this forward move, and then inevitably have to revert to what they were doing before, which was keeping their hips over their feet. And so instead of fighting it, I was like, no, there isn't one. Let's try and remain balanced at the top of the turn. And it worked. The kids, as a race coach, it worked. There was less confusion from them. They seemed to grasp it easier, and they gained more control. Right. So then now I'm a year into Deer Valley, and I'm still talking to my old coach friends, and I'm still always thinking about racing, and I'm watching racing, and I'm like, well, if in the Wedge Christie you are learning the new skill at the bottom, and then kind of flipping that into the bottom of the turn needs to be your strongest part of the turn. That's the part of the turn where you need to be absolutely dialed, because it's from there that you switch into the top. It's from there that you switch, that you change, that you have to do something new, that you have to change into the next thing. So you have to be rock solid at the bottom of the turn to do that new skill into the top.
Yeah, it's also the point of the turn where you have the most forces acting against you. It's both centrifugal force, it's gravity. You have all those things acting against the body, and so if you're out of balance, if you're not stacked, etc., it's not going to work. So you're going to have problems.
Yeah, totally. So your strongest part of the turn needs to be your completion, or anything from apex down. And then I also, when I thought about ski racing and ski coaching, we would do these meetings of the Park City ski team where all the coaches would get together, and we'd do presentations on what we were teaching, and we never came to a conclusion. And that always frustrated me. I'm like, what is our philosophy here as a program? How are we doing it? And we'd have these meetings, and we wouldn't come to a conclusion. We'd leave the meetings, U14 coach would do what he was going to do. Fish coaches were going to do what they were going to do. I'm sitting in the middle, and I'm like, I'm going to teach these kids how to be ski racers. I'm going to talk about things like stiveting. I'm going to talk about things like slowing down. I'm not only going to talk about acceleration. Like, there's also this concept of perpetual acceleration in ski racing, which is just physically impossible, right? Nobody. You go out of the start at 0 miles an hour, you end at 98 miles an hour, and the numbers only increase all the way through. That's ridiculous. And so this idea that you're building speed every turn, or trying to build speed every turn, it's nonsense, really, right? And so when you say that to kids, if they take it literally, you're only confusing them. And so there's a constant speed. And now, within each individual turn, you might slow down a little bit at the top, speed up at the bottom, but there's a constant speed or a constant rate that you're going to have going through the course. So I'm looking at these things, I'm seeing these problems, I'm looking at, there is no philosophy in ski racing, and USSA has got a lot on their plate. They're running races, they're doing a good job of it, they're keeping the sport going, but their education is lacking. And I took the level 100, and they taught us how to do drills and told us what drills were. And I was like, okay, I didn't learn anything there. I mean, I knew drills because I had done a lot of them, right?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it, and there's no philosophy. And so I needed to come up with a philosophy. Just like the Wedge Christie, because the Wedge Christie was the first philosophy. Now, not all ski instructors consider the Wedge Christie a philosophy. A lot of them is just a singular drill. But when I saw it and I heard about it, I thought about it, and I utilized it, it's a philosophy. It's
the embodiment of the philosophy, which is teach the bottom,
yes.
and you'll migrate that up through the rest of the turn.
Yeah, exactly. And so I wanted one for ski racing, and it hit me that clean completions is the simplest thing you can say about ski racing, where there's nothing below that. There's no statement you can make that's more important, simpler, anything. And I've talked to a lot of coaches about them. Like, let me know if you have a simpler statement, and we can switch and we can go with that. But as of right now, the simplest statement for a ski racer, and the simplest focus anyone could have, would be clean completions.
Yeah. Do you use that term? So as you're teaching the middle-aged adult who wants to learn to really carve, do you use that same terminology and the same thought process with them, or do you adapt it to someone who's not thinking about going as fast as they can through gates? It's about there's style and form. Kind of what they're trying to achieve is a bit different.
Mm-hmm. So I'm lucky in the sense that I get a lot of lessons where I'm teaching high-end carving because of the YouTube channel. Not a lot of ski instructors get clients who want to carve better. So I'm lucky there, and I really I enjoy it.
Yep.
But when I get that lesson, when I get someone who just wants to power up their carving and become a stronger skier and get more edge angle, a lot of times it's, I want to touch my hip to the snow, which is a great goal. I mean, that was my goal coming up. But I don't necessarily say clean completions with them because we're not in a course, right? But what I talk about a lot is driving and powering the bottom of the turn, staying with the ski longer and really completing the turn across the hill so they get their momentum going side to side versus down the hill. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing with the moving forward. When you're telling kids to move forward, they start moving their hips down the hill. And really, when you get into high-end skiing and your carving is really strong, the forces start going left to right, side to side, much more than down the hill. In fact, you don't want to go down the hill at all because that takes you off of the balance point. And so what you're really trying to do is claw into the side of the hill. The analogy I use a lot is, the salmon ladder in Ninja Warrior?
I do not. Describe it. Yeah.
It's the elevator shaft that goes straight up, so you push your hands and your feet straight out to the sides, and you go up because you're climbing the walls.
Yeah, okay.
That's the feeling you want for high-end carving.
Okay, yeah, with obviously the walls being the turns, the apex of each turn.
Mm-hmm. So when you're climbing up that salmon ladder, you're not thinking about pumping your hips straight up. You're thinking about pushing out to the wall, right, and gripping there, and then you're moving up with your pumps from there. But go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as you've been talking, I've been thinking about, the forward movement, and, one of the other drills that people use is the skate the shape drill, where you're kind of skating the top of the turn, and people are using that to think about, you're pushing, some might say forward, or down the hill, but as I think about it, you're kind of pushing laterally against the ski.
Totally.
Again, and that's what you're trying to get them to think about, is you're pushing laterally against the ski as opposed to projecting yourself down the hill.
Yes, exactly. Because when you're carving, you are, in a sense, you're riding a gravitron. Remember the gravitron ride from the fair?
Yeah, the one that makes everyone get sick. Well, one of the ones that makes people get sick.
Well, you get about 2 rides before you get sick, but you know, when you stick to the wall, right?
Of course.
So you change gravity. You the normal force acting on you, if you get into physics, is now pushing out to the wall, and now you're stuck to the wall, and your feet come off the ground, and now your normal force is to the outside. When you're carving hard, you're, in a sense, riding those skis around the outside of the gravitron. And to do that, you've got to have your momentum, your trajectory going to the outside. And another big mistake, and something I work on a lot with people who are learning to carve, a lot of people are trying to lurch their body to the inside of the turn, or lead with their head and shoulders to the inside of the turn of where they're going. And you can't do that. You have to be fully pressed to the outside of the ski, and the ski brings you around the turn. And so it's getting people to commit to the outside ski and stay pushing towards the outside ski, so to the outside, all the way to the end of the turn, to the completion, and then they unweight and switch, and now try and push to the other side of the trail.
Yeah. As we've been talking, I feel like we're nerding out a little bit, which is fine.
That's what I do.
The audience, at least I think, are coaches, ex-racers, but also recreational skiers. And so, the coaches and the ex-racers are going to appreciate everything we're talking about here and understand the nuance. But for the less proficient skier, let's call it, the recreational skier, what are the cues that you might, we've talked about these sensations, perhaps, maybe it's more feeling oriented, but are there cues that you use, again, with your clients that you try and get them to think about as they're making these turns, i.e., some sort of force that they should feel, or just, hey, tip your inside knee, or drive your inside knee in the turn, and the outside will follow. What are the common cues that you use with your clients?
Sure. So in the same vein of the Wedge Christie, clean completions and everything, I'm always trying to get the clients to ride the skis across the hill. And I'm always telling them that's the funnest part of the turn, where you've come into the turn, you've made your direction change, you've gone through that point where you're facing directly down the hill. And I want them to get through that quickly, because I want them to get coming back across the hill, and I want them to get that sensation of riding the skis, because that's fun. It's enjoyable. And I want them to spend as much time there as possible. So I teach a comma-shaped turn. I don't teach the big C. And actually, I think the big C is totally impossible. So there's a lot of dogmas out there that I think have held skiing back that I've tried to tackle. But when you get somebody who's just riding across the hill, they're enjoying it. And they feel safe, too, because the scariest part for most people in the turn is initiation to apex, right? And my definition of apex is when you switch going from the left, when you switch going to the right to the left, right? So it's just a momentary spot in time, and your skis don't necessarily have to be facing down the hill at apex. Like if you're sliding the turn, your skis are already going to be facing the other way before you hit that point of stopping going right and starting going left.
Okay.
So that's the scariest part of the turn for most people. And so I'm trying to get them through that quickly and get into that ride phase. And that ride phase is that whole section from the apex all the way over to completion. And I want them to be there for a long time, and I want them to enjoy it. And then I tell them to basically unweight. You can stand up a little bit, but really flare the tails out. Try and slide your tails out at the top of the turns. Get through that top quickly and get back to the ride. And once they feel it, they're happy and they're comfortable. The big thing is being comfortable, is giving people confidence in their skiing. And once you give them confidence in their skiing, it's amazing how much easier that scary part becomes, because they know where they're going to land. And that's another big thing with teaching the forward move into the turn, or asking somebody to rail the skis or have the skis pointing down the fall line at the apex. It's scary. And so and a lot of times it's scary because they don't know where they're going to go from there, because they don't have that super strong completion. They don't have that body position to come across the hill. And so I start by giving them that confidence and giving them that body position of riding the skis across the hill.
Yeah. I mentioned this in an episode I had with Greg Willis, who heads the ski school at Vail. And there was a cue that I learned very early on not to coach or teach my wife. And so we had an instructor at Vail once upon a time. This is probably 20 years ago now. And the instructor gave her a tip, which was to tip the inside knee in to get her to carve. And once she got the carving bit, she's like, a light bulb went off in her head. So what you're describing is feeling comfortable and enjoying it. I've seen this happen, obviously very close to home, where all of a sudden she's like, now I get why you guys enjoy this so much. She's talking to me and my son, and our son. And having that sensation and that feeling, that enjoyment is I mean, I want to say life altering, but it clearly changes the dynamic and understanding of the skier to understand that clean completion, what the carve is, and that sensation, and why it brings happiness to a lot of people.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, like, this is the fun part. Get to the fun part as quick as you can. I don't care how you get there, but get back to the fun part. Use it. Okay, now you got to switch directions, because that's what we have to do, and get back to the fun part. Get back to the fun. And they, when they feel that, it frees them, right? Yeah. Now they can try something new. There's a lot of dogma in ski teaching. In ski racing, it's get forward, move your hips forward. In ski teaching, there is a dogma that is against the Z-shaped turn. If you show up to an exam as a ski instructor and they show you somebody who's chopping turns or not turning very well, you say, oh, it's Z-shaped turns, and you pass the exam. And I look at every time someone's talking Z-shaped turns as a negative, I'm like, okay, so you want them to have this beautiful, clean C arc and spend half of their turn in the scary part, and then get to the bottom, and then get back to the scary part, and you want this perfectly shaped turn before they're confident with the bottom of the C. And it doesn't help the people get through the zone. Now they're stuck in the scary part for half the turn, spending half the time in the fun part, but then having to get back to it. And so I don't get on anybody for their Z-shaped turn. I'm like, yeah, rush yourself through that top, but then ride and enjoy. Rush yourself and ride and enjoy. And by not attacking this thing that's been vilified in the Z-shaped turn, I mean, it's all in all the manuals. Like, what's wrong? Basically, if you ever do a movement analysis as a ski instructor, and they say, and there's an option to select that the wrong thing is Z-shaped turns, select it, because you'll pass the exam.
That's funny. So I guess in recreational skiing, you talk about that as skidding the top of the turn, mm-hmm. and then carving the bottom half. In racing parlance, that would be, a stiv, or buttering, or feathering the top of the turn. Again, you're skidding it's in some degree or another. You're like, just use that. Like, and in some cases, tactically in the race setting, yeah, you really have to do that because you want to control your speed coming into a section from a tactical perspective. So it's interesting. You use the same things, but I guess the recreational skier doesn't think of it as they're doing a stiv, but that is what you're basically saying. You're encouraging it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, and with great results too. I mean, it really, again, this all comes back to the Wedge Christie, and it's a wholesome approach to skiing. The other approach would be a direct to parallel method, which there's people out there that do teach a direct to parallel ski teaching approach, and I'm sure they've had success. But what I found is that by letting someone slide or letting someone control their speed at the top and then have confidence at the bottom, it's a very wholesome, happy approach, skipping the scary stuff, and it works well with people, and you can move basically everybody through that zone with that approach.
That makes sense. What kind of terrain do you get your clients on? Because I think if it's really gentle, it's hard to. I mean, maybe you can slide it, I guess. But the more pitch there is, the more pronounced that slide or stiv is at the top of the turn, and obviously the feeling of carving and at the bottom of the turn and the G forces, etc. You really feel that sensation. Whereas on a more gentler terrain, cat track, etc., the feedback is different. Do you think about the terrain that you're using to teach these different techniques and how to think about things?
100%. I mean, half of my job as a ski instructor is to choose the right trail. Is just putting somebody on the right pitch for their ability level. And that's going to change for every level of skier. And so at Deer Valley, we have some really great teaching terrain. We have this one trail called Ontario. And the bottom half of Ontario is a consistent gradient. And I don't know what the pitch is in terms of numbers, but I'll bet it's like between 10 and 12 degrees. So you can move the whole way. Like you never are losing speed. But it's not steep at all. And so with anybody who's intermediate or even approaching intermediate, that's the terrain we're on. And then as somebody's more confident, if I get an ex-racer, or I was really fortunate to get to ski with an ex-baseball player, pro baseball player last season, and we were looking for the moderate to steep blues to get the feeling. And with him, he was a very strong carver, had a racing background, and then went on to have a baseball career, and so, phenomenal athlete. Once he figured out how to comma his turn and not try and do the big round C top of the turn, once he figured out how to comma the turn on a blue, then we could move to a black, and he could totally achieve it. And then was getting the results he'd always wanted. But he needed to change that shape of the turn or allow himself to slide a little bit at the top of the turn and change that shape and allow the top to be quicker, right, and the bottom to be longer. And once he had that, then we could ramp it up. But the terrain has got to be ability appropriate. Yeah.
Shifting gears a little bit, you talk a lot, or not a lot, but you have videoed your use of CARV. And I'm curious, both from a end user perspective, I have it as well, and I had Jamie Grant, the CEO and co-founder, on the podcast, so we've talked about it. So first, as an end user and someone who likes to compete on the leaderboards and get a high ski IQ, what are your thoughts about using that technology in that way? I like the fact that it's a gamifying skiing a bit, and you're near or at the top of the leaderboards. How do you think about it? And clearly they've changed the algorithm as well. So you've been out with this season with the new methodology. But how do you think about skiing in order to, again, game the system and get as high a score as possible?
Well, I also love the gamification of CARV. I am extremely competitive. I love ski racing for the competitive aspect. I still love ski racing. I still love racing town series. Like, I still have a lot of desire to go out and compete and, you know, be the best version of myself for sure. But I mean, yeah, beat other people. You know, there's a definite amount of pride that Ted Ligety is also using this app, and I can go out and I can compete against him because he had all this great career. You know, I had a not as good of a career, even close. But the fact that I still get to go and compare myself and see, okay, yes, he was so much better then. Can I be better than him at 42? You know, when we're 50, can I be better? Or you know, at 42, can I beat this 27-year-old kid off of the University of Utah ski team at Town Series? I want that for sure. Yeah. And so CARV is super cool. And it's cool because it's accurate. You know, the numbers you get out of it, while maybe if my turns are scoring better than Ted's, maybe I'm just gaming the system and maybe I'm just tricking the thing into giving me a higher score. But anything that's not in that tight of a confine, like, I've never looked at somebody who's scoring a 150 and thought, oh, they're better than someone who's scoring a 160 or than a 170. It really does a good job of ranking and, you know, at least getting you in the ballpark of where you're at in your skiing.
Right. Yeah. So I'm in the, well, I was in the 150s, and I'm trying to figure out, you know, how to improve on that. Right. I was in the 150s, and you know, I understood from Jamie about how many turns you had to complete, and it was a segment, and you know, you needed to come to a stop fairly quickly. You can't sort of lollygag your last several turns in the run. And you know, obviously they've modified the algorithm, so it's just the best 8 turns in a given segment or run that you've taken. So it'll be different this year.
That's a huge improvement.
Yeah.
Because CARV would actually ruin ski days last season. So you would go out, you'd have it going on, you'd be like, oh, I am killing it. I have to stop so I can get my score.
Right.
And so you were doing this lame thing, which was doing 8 to 10 turns and stopping. 8 to 10 turns and stopping. And so I could only wear it on days where I was going out to score. I couldn't use it as a tracker. I couldn't, because it frustrated me. So that was a huge improvement they made. And now you can go out and just ski the whole run and not even look at it, but at the end of the day, check, and it'll select out your best section to give you your best possible score. And so it's working for you.
Right. I was not aware of that limitation last year. So yeah, I even skied at Deer Valley last season, and you know, I had seen your videos and looked at various trails. I was like, oh, I'm going to go over here and you know, arc down, and then of course the run out. I'm going to ski the run out down to the lift, and I'm like, oh, I just ruined apparently I just ruined the segment.
Totally. So it was fun. We would go out and try and score on CARV.
Yeah.
And as an activity, that was great. But if one person in the group wasn't doing that activity, it was terrible. So we were definitely gaming it. But that was the fun part. We all, you know, the crew I was out with when we were just going for score, that was so fun, right? Just like at a ski race day. Not everyone wants to bang gates all the time, but on that day, it is fun.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you think about it as an instructor now, right? I don't know if you've used it with clients, but you know, clearly its aim is to help people get better at skiing and give them pointers. As an instructor, it should be a teaching aid in some way or another. Have you incorporated CARV into your teaching activities yet?
A couple times. If a client shows up with a CARV, and you know, a couple times it happens where they specifically like, hey, I'm at 142, I want to hit 150. I'm like, all right, here we go, let's go do it. Well, the great thing about CARV is that it's empirical, that it's real data, that you can't argue with it, and it's not judged. basically everything in skiing has been judged the whole way through. And instead of getting a new skier, your inside hand drops every turn and fixing that up, well, that has nothing to do with how well they're skiing, how powerful they are in the ski, how accurate they are on the ski, what their tempo is, any of these things, any of these judgments of, you got to level your shoulders. Okay, that's an aesthetic thing. Maybe the leveling the shoulders is going to give you more power to the outside ski. Usually it does, but maybe, right? Not every time. So with CARV, you're getting real data, real empirical evidence to work with, and you're not dealing with a judge thing. It's the difference between ski racing, you got the clock, and mogul skiing where you have literal judges.
Yeah. The subjective versus the objective. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I'm looking forward to getting out on the hill. I'll be out this weekend, hopefully, and starting, the new season and seeing what I can score. I got to get my score back up.
well, another thing on the new algorithm for CARV is it now can measure your short turns, your mogul turns, your CARV turns, and powder skiing.
Yeah.
As well as parallel and snowplow. So now there's a segment for every ability user and every type of user, where before it was so typecast to just pure carving.
Right.
And a lot of people saw that as dorky, which it is, but also, even the most free ride bra of skier, when they lock a clean carve and really can pipe a groomer with quality, they get the rush. Carving is on another level of adrenaline, fun, excitement that I think everybody can agree on, even though it's not the coolest thing.
To some people.
To some people, yeah. And I think a lot of those people that don't want to admit that it's cool are the ones that don't do it as good.
Probably. Look, I think, it's interesting. The people who are talented in other areas. So, you're a UNH grad. Kate Zelliff was on the podcast. She raced at UNH for a year before blowing out her knees. She went on to become a 2-time Queen of Corbett's winner and a big mountain skier and in Warren Miller films and TGR films. She credits her racing background and having the fundamental principles of obviously carving a turn as why she's as good as she is in big mountain skiing. I think you still use those same skills, and so whether you appreciate the carve or not, it's a foundation that you can use for any of those other aspects, whether it's jumping off a cliff or half pipe or what have you.
Yeah, and it's the principle of understanding how to stand against the outside ski.
Yeah.
Right, you learn that as a ski racer, and then once you can do that, you can ski those big mountain lines. Because if you're on a big mountain line, you have to be connected and powerful over the outside ski, and then hold your body in that body position that keeps that, right? That upper body, lower body separation. The ability to hold that kink is, I think, the biggest thing that the ex-racers are bringing that allows them to flourish as a big mountain skier or whatever.
I'm going to use that to segue into the GROM program because I've heard about it. I would love for you to describe for the audience, what it is. But I think from what I've heard, it uses some unconventional, or like it's not purely a racing program, or at least they're using unique drills. Let's put it that way. And I think they're probably in the things that I see should be more cross-pollination, for lack of a better term, between the park and pipe folks and racers. Like I think it would be useful for every ski racer to figure out how to do a helicopter, or go off a jump, or just body awareness and other sorts of things, athleticism, top line. So let's talk about the GROM program, what it is. And I think it's pretty unique, and Park City is pretty lucky to have the talent that it does to be able to do such a thing. So go ahead.
Sure. So it's headed up by Forrest Carey, ex-U.S. ski team coach. I think he was 12 years on the U.S. ski team coaching. And we're crazy fortunate here to have, Ted Ligety has kids same age as my kids. Jess Kelly, former U.S. ski team, she's got kids the same age. There's Steve Nyman's out here with his kids. They're the same age as my kids. And then there's 5, maybe 6, maybe more than that, NCAA All-American parent couples that have kids. I mean, it's crazy. We're beyond lucky in that regard.
Yeah.
And Forrest is really, he's the man behind the whole thing. And Forrest comes from, he grew up in Maine and looks at this as a how would we do it in Maine? How would we do it in small town? Not trying to just be ski racing. It's a race to spend money, get more volume, kind of going the wrong way. Right now, ski racing is just getting so much more expensive. Yeah. It's so serious. You got to specialize at a young age. Club sports, all these things are coming into play when we're looking at how we're going to do ski racing for our kids. And so the GROM program is to get all these kids with these great parents and have the parents be the volunteers. So you got really good parent volunteer coaches. So now we're saving money on coaches and not trying to just start hammering the kids with gates right away, but trying to foster a love of skiing with the kids and letting the group of kids and that energy that happens when you get a bunch of kids that are happy and excited together be the motivation, be the fun, and be what lets them fall in love with skiing, and then they'll improve because of that. And so basically the whole program is meant to keep skiing cheap and get the group of kids together so that, and that's the magic. And then the setup is to keep it safe and to make sure that there's a little bit of focus but really more safety is we set up an obstacle course. And it includes jumps, it includes turns. It's basically a snake down the mountain. And the longer we can leave it in, the deeper the trenches gets, the better, right? Yep. And we've got the Utah Olympic Park, which is phenomenal. And so the kids can ski on weeknights. So it's not a weekend program. So the idea is that they ski weeknights at the Utah Olympic Park and then ski on the weekends with their families. If there's a park over there, so if the kids want to go hit jumps for a run, we go hit jumps for a run. If they want to run the course, then we run the course. And if they want to hit the mogul line, there's a mogul line, we hit the mogul line. And so it's really, we're not trying to hammer them down and be like, you have to do this. And we're definitely not teaching technique. We're just letting the hill be the coach. You fire them up a little bit, and that's all we're trying to do.
Oh, so what's the age range? You're saying you're not teaching technique. I'm curious. I think that age makes a difference when you in that regard.
So the first year Groms is 6-year-olds.
Yeah.
Those are little kids. Half of them have poles, half of them don't. Basically, they need to be parallel, and then we'll take them. Unfortunately, the UOP is a little bit steep. It'd be great if it was flatter. If it was flatter, we could take more. And we could do more and even take a kid in a wedge and it'd be fine. But because of the UOP's pitch, they kind of need to be parallel before they can start. Mm-hmm. So the actual GROM program is only those 6-year-olds. And then once they're 7 or 8, then we have skills and drills. And so skills and drills are a little bit more intense. The GROM program is definitely, there's a parent on the lift with every single kid. You're taking care of them more. But it's the same idea. It's an obstacle course.
Right.
And then skills and drills, 7 and 8-year-olds. Now if they're capable, can ride the lift by themselves. Now you got a group of 6 kids with a parent skiing around. Basically, you're still doing obstacle courses, but it's just that next level up. And then this season, we have what's called the West Peak Warriors. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Utah Olympic Park. We have a little hill and a big hill. And the big hill at the Utah Olympic Park has a proper black diamond. There's only one run. It's a training lane. And so we're going to take 8-year-olds who have done skills and drills plus 9 and 10-year-olds. And they're going to be the West Peak Warriors. And so there's those are basically the splitting of age groups. But at all these levels, we're letting the obstacle course be the coach. Right? And again, we're not doing drills. Right? Because I don't know about you, but I hated doing drills as an athlete.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to think. Maybe there were some that were enjoyable, but they get a little redundant and repetitive quickly.
Yeah, and even as a coach, I would get so frustrated when we were doing drill days, and this is before I was the head coach. So this is the plan. We're doing drills. Let's go do them. I got really sick of telling the best athletes that was good and coaching up the other kids. And so I was like, what are we doing with these drills? Like, once you get good at them, you're done. Let's move on. And so drill. I'm not a big drill guy. I think there's basically 3 drills that are worthwhile. You've got pivot slips. You've got the slopey drill, and you got javelin turns.
Yeah,
and I like
javelin turns are my favorite. Yeah,
and a javelin turn's good because when you do it, just by doing it, you're getting better. You don't need someone to look at you and tell you that you're getting what you're doing wrong. If you're in a drill and you need a coach to stand there and look at you and tell you how you did it, it's not a good drill.
That's a good point.
So
yeah, back to the Grom. You're not providing any instruction. You're basically saying if they fall down, they figure out they did something wrong. They need to change their balance or the center of mass. I mean, they're probably not thinking center of mass, but that's effectively what they're doing. So there's no instruction whatsoever at any of those levels.
Well, you're there with a group, right?
Yeah.
And one of my biggest tools as a coach is to fire kids up. And so I'm a cheerleader. I'm rah-rahing, and if somebody does something good, I'm going, oh, that was sick. And by pointing out what was sick, the kids are getting an eye for it, and then I'll do that. Oh, I just, hey, guys, did you see how strong Bryce's outside ski is right there? I mean, we're using the terminology, right? They know what the outside ski is, those kind of things.
Yeah.
You guys see how good Bryce's outside ski is right there? And the other kids are going, oh, I can do that. I want to do that, right? And so it's cheerleading, and I just pick out when a kid does something that I like, that's good, I highlight it, right? But I'm not telling kids, okay, this time we're going to work on upper body, lower body separation, or you need to change your hip angle. Like, not doing any of that. And this is actually based in science. Are you familiar with constraint-based learning?
Yes.
So the idea is, and the simplest example of constraint-based learning is you put your ski pole in the ground and tell the kids to do a hockey stop as close to that ski pole as possible. And then let that constraint, that ski pole, stop here on this mark, be the coach. And to get better at stopping accurately is getting them better at stopping accurately.
Right.
And so you don't tell someone, okay, both knees at the same time, keep them together, feel the edge, big toe, make sure your hip is inside, and then your shoulders have to be level. And you don't need to tell them that stuff. And when somebody figures it out for themselves, they internalize and they have it. Right? And so this is traditional ski racing, ski coaching, even ski teaching is based on technique improvements. It's you're doing this wrong, your hand position is wrong, you're not moving the inside knee right. Even with your wife, that dropping the inside knee first was a technique thing. Okay? Mm-hmm. Not saying it doesn't work, but it's not the only teaching method I've heard validated through science, and this comes from there's a British researcher, he was on the Tom Gelly, the Big Picture Skiing podcast, talking about science and talking about research and getting data and how people learn is this constraint-based learning idea. So we're within the constraint-based learning concept with skills and drills, and because the kids are in a group and because they're jazzed up and because you've got, parents like me, Libby Ludlow's out there, ex-US ski team member, she's out there skiing around. And because you got that, it's all just going to come to the top on its own.
Yeah. And like you said, it's, well, again, Park City is pretty unique in the fact that you have as much talent, located in that region as you do. But I think it can be replicated. I know, for instance, and we talked about New Hampshire, at Proctor Academy, that Proctor has their own ski hill. They have a junior program. Kids in the area of, call it the Concord, New Lebanon area of New Hampshire, are out there weeknights skiing and under the lights, and they do the same sort of thing. And it's parents and some coaches, and obviously in New Hampshire they have some ex-racers doing effectively the same thing. And I think it's very low cost from what I understand, and they've been producing some good skiers for the period of time that they've been operating in. We need, I think, more of those local mountain under the lights weeknight sort of thing, because what you described at the outset, which was it's getting super expensive and specialized. I think you said you did one PG year, but you didn't even go to Stratton Mountain School for your entire high school career, just for senior year and a PG year, and then you went off to race, an NCAA. That would be next to impossible today. You'd have to go to a ski academy all 4 years, plus do a PG year or two, more or less, to race at that level. And just obviously the expense of that has skyrocketed.
Sure. I mean, I was hanging out with Forrest actually the other day. We got our kids together to ski, and they were bombing. I mean, we were just chasing kids down who were just bombing, but just so jazzed up and happy. That was the victory. Yeah. And he and I, we're on the same page, so we're just letting them rip, and we're good to go. But you got the cut-proof leggings, you got back protectors. There's so many things that we've added that, yes, okay, I mean, I don't want my kids to get cut, so if they're racing fists and I'm machine tuning their skis, like if we ever get to that level, they're going to have the cut-proof leggings. So some of it's unavoidable, but what we can avoid is keep it local, keep it fun. And just one last thing on the Grom program, we're keeping the kids moving, right? We don't want it to look like a traditional stand on the side, listen to the coach, do the drill, go down. We're keeping them moving, we're keeping the toes warm, and letting the fun be the big teacher. Now, in the setup, you can manipulate what you're getting out of the kids. So it's not just a chaotic, random, fun course. A lot of it is. But when we do get to the part of the course where there's turns, one of my tricks was I would set 5 brushes in a turn. And I would set the brushes in the shape of a turn. And so the first 2 brushes are vertical, okay, about 2 meters distance down the hill. So top brush, 2 meters directly below that in the fall line. And then below that, I would look to where I would want the kids to finish their turn. And I would put 3 more brushes dragging the turn across the hill. And number one thing when you start skiing gates with kids is they turn where the gate is, right? But we don't want them to turn where the gate is. We want them to turn above the gate and figure out that shape that goes around that course. Well, so with brushes, so I put those apex brushes, 2 vertical ones, and then 3 more brushes dragging the turn across the hill. And we get to that section of the course, and I'll say to the kids, get on that brush and hammer the outside ski. And so what do? They come in, hammer it, but they're hammering the turn more across the hill, so now we're clean completions, right? So I've got a vision of what I want, but I'm not saying it. I'm not telling the kids, right, this is what we're doing. But the results speak for themselves, because what do kids do? They turn at the gate. So when they have the brushes leading them across the hill, definitely not where a traditional gate would be, boom, they would just hammer, and they're finishing the turns. And one of the number one things I see with young ski racers coming up, nobody finishes their turns, right? And we could really get into the reason behind this. One of the big ones is they're always trying to move their hips down the hill and not getting this left-right concept going. So by taking those brushes and creating this comma in the hill and telling them to just hammer on the brushes, which is what they want to do, which is what their instinct tells them to do.
Right.
I'm getting the turn shape that we want, and there's no brushes at the top of the turn. The top of the turn is completely their interpretation of what they have to do to get back to that brush and hammer back across the hill. And so we're setting up an environment that produces the movements in the skiing that we're looking for, but we're never telling them what the movement in the skiing looks like.
So, Ski Dad TV is a YouTube channel that you created. How did you start it, and how's this going? We'll go from there.
So originally it was a COVID project. I was refurbishing an old ski boat, and I was going to video it, and I was going to put a build video out of the ski boat, and that was the summer. And then in the winter, I was going to ski with my kids, video my kids. I mean, at the time, Bryce already had a feel for skiing. Dylan was still young, but he's got really good balance. And I was like, oh, man, I mean, my kids, they're probably going to ski good. I'll just video that, and it'll be fun. It'll be great, you know?
Right.
But then I realized that having a summer version and a winter version on the same channel doesn't work. So then I had to, take the boat stuff, move it away. And there wasn't a lot of traction for just me videoing my kids. Nobody cares, which is fine. It makes sense. I don't care about other people's kids. I mean, relatively speaking. But, and then I made the base skiing series because I had these thoughts and I had these ideas, and really I didn't publish the base skiing series as trying to get a viewership or create that part of the channel. I made it as I wanted to put a marker out there for the ski racing industry that this is a philosophy. It looks different. It sounds different. So if you don't have a presentation that you can present that presents a philosophy that explains to people what to do in every situation without a coach sitting there telling you what to do, this is where it needs to be. So I made the base skiing series, philosophy, minimal traction. However, the right people have seen it. People who want something, who are looking at seeing the same issue. So that was kind of my first teaching video. But then I really kind of hit a vein when I made the video, there's no forward movement of the turn. And as a race coach, I thought, really good video presentations where I'd take a World Cup run, I would show it on the screen, I'd break it down, I'd talk the kids through it, this is what we're looking at, this is what you're looking to do, and my video presentations were good. Probably one of my strongest traits as a coach. And so, so I made, there's no forward movement of the turn because this is a statement I had made as a coach, and I knew it's a hot button statement, but one that I wanted to make because it's so dogmatic in skiing that I felt like I just needed to put it out there and give this perspective so we could hopefully move on as an industry. And so that kind of hit. That's my most popular video still today. I get the most followers from it. And I was like, okay, well, it was called Ski Dad TV because it was supposed to be about me and the kids. Nobody cares about that. That's fine. But the teaching stuff people really likes. And so, if that's what people like, I like talking about it. I like teaching. I like describing things. And I think there's a lot of, I can make an impact and have some good stuff to say. So I guess Ski Dad TV has evolved more into a teaching channel. Yeah. Even though I'm still making videos, some videos with the kids and also videos of me just skiing with people I find interesting. I've got Eric Lipton on there. I've free ski with Ted Ligety, and I got those videos on there. So now I'm kind of in this place where making a teaching video every week is really difficult, but going out and getting to ski with someone like Ted, or another guy's Slade Knightley, who's now he's the number 2 guy on CARV. For a while, he was the number 1 guy on CARV, and he's just this random guy that lives up in Ogden, Utah. And so being able to discover and ski with somebody like Slade was amazing. And those videos are a lot easier to make. I still think interesting, but the channel has kind of evolved into that.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, you can take the viewer can learn something from those episodes. I know I do. It's interesting to say you and somebody else, Slade, for example, Ted obviously is, most people will want to listen to Ted and his thoughts on skiing, and understand what the thought process is. I've listened to Ted or read about Ted's thought around. It used to be when he was racing, he felt his feet were backpedaling as if on a bicycle. That sensation of the lead change, and I've gone out and just thought about it as if I were backpedaling on a bicycle. Now, that's not something that I do when I'm normally out free skiing, but to think about that, for a run or two, is unique.
On the backward bicycle.
Yeah.
I think it's a pretty bad cue.
It might be.
It doesn't help. I mean, the number of people I've heard talk about it who can't demo it. So I've heard people out there talking about the backward bicycle, trying to teach the backward bicycle, can't do it themselves. And it's another one of these dogmatic terms that has become popular, cool to say.
Well, it's because of who said it.
Exactly, but it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, look, if you think about it, like I said, I've gone out and tried it and thought about it, on a couple of runs. It's an interesting sensation, but it is not something that I would think of. I think what the point he was trying to make is that lengthening of the outside leg and the contraction of the inside leg. I mean, that's basically what you're kind of the movement is. I mean, there's obviously lead change as well, relative to position to one another. But I think those things probably happen naturally if you're thinking about the cues that you probably should be. But again, for those who want to try, go try it and think about it, but then move on to something else.
Yeah.
But look, your conversations with whether it's Steve Nyman or Ted or others, I enjoy. I think people who are listening should go to YouTube and check out Ski Dad TV. It's entertaining. You definitely like to chat, and I think the conversations are fun to watch and listen to. What's next for Ski Dad? You keep doing it. You should bring it out to the Groms. You should have some kind of a Grom episode.
I've found that nothing brings the vibe down quicker than pulling a camera out.
Okay.
So it's tough because hold on, wait guys, let me set up my camera. Now you totally ruined the vibe, and that you can't quite do that with the Grom. Even with my kids, I mean, on days when I film with them, it's harder, and so there's days where we go out and we just don't film, and it's so much more fun.
Oh, of course.
So
absolutely.
But I don't. I still. At the end of the day, the channel is definitely out there because it's stuff that I'm interested in, stuff that I want to do. And so I'll keep making the family content. I'll keep doing the conversations. And when I can, I'll put together the more serious teaching stuff. And I got a couple good concepts that I am working on. Actually, this fall, rebuilt my office or built myself an office. So I didn't make as much content through the fall as I would have liked to. So I'm kind of feeling like I'm pretty far behind. So we'll see. And I really want to keep up just producing content on a 1 week cycle, but we'll see how that goes.
Okay. All right. So for the listeners, they can find you where?
Ski Dad TV on YouTube. I have a merch shop, skidad.shop. You can get a Ski Dad TV t-shirt. You can contact me. My contact link is on the website. There's also skidad.tv. And you can contact me there. You can get a lesson from me at Deer Valley. I'm a full-time ski instructor. You can send me your video. I'm more than happy to review video for people. Put up a little blurb, send it back. I think I do a pretty good job with that. So if anybody wants some coaching from me, via just the internet, I'm totally into it.
Great.
I'll chat on the phone with you. If you reach out to me, again, reach out to Ski Dad TV. There's a contact link there. Let me know, and I'm happy to talk to you on the phone. Like, I really love skiing. I think about it all the time. I don't get frustrated when I think about skiing. Remember when I was working at Technical Blizzard, I used to get frustrated when I thought about having to sell stuff. But when it comes to skiing, I think about it all day, and I'm perfectly happy.
Well, that makes two of us. And with that, I thank you for joining me. It's been a fantastic conversation. We could go on for hours, I'm sure. But everyone who's listening, reach out to Joe with one of those methods that he just described. So thanks a lot, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig. Had a great time.
That's my conversation with Joe Dunn, aka Ski Dad TV. If you enjoyed this episode, take a second to follow Fresh Corduroy on your podcast platform of choice. It really helps the show grow. And if you know a skier, coach, or parent who'd appreciate this conversation, I'd love it if you shared the episode with them. Also, thank you to my nephew, Craig Zolan, for the intro and outro music. You can find him on Spotify with his album Calder's Universe. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time on Fresh Corduroy.